Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really glad to be speaking with you about Love in Taipei. But first of all, you went from being a New York Times bestselling author to now, producing the film. Um, so congratulations. I want to hear about this whole experience, from your initial reactions to finding out that your novel that you took 10 years to write was going to be adapted into a movie to then, finally seeing this story that you built on screen.
Yeah, well, it's been very exciting. I think I have known for a long time that, my work was potentially adaptable. So Loveboat itself took me 3 years to write, but I'd written four novels on the way to Loveboat Taipei, it being the fifth one. And along the way, some of those novels had been kind of tapped as potential film. I love movies myself, and so I feel like I always kind of had that bug, like, oh wow, like, but it just seems so pie in the sky. I feel like I remember I'm hearing like stories when I was growing up about like the kid who wanted to move to Hollywood to make movies, haha, like dream on, right? So it wasn't something I aspired to, but it just kind of evolved. And I think it's like it is. There's been so much work that has gone into this moment that I forget that I need to take a step back and celebrate and be like, oh wow, this is actually a huge thing that we did. But last night was my opportunity to do that. So I was in the car driving with my family to the screening, and my kid reminded me, he's like, Mom, remember what your film manager said when this whole process started? And what he said was, it's so hard to make a movie. We can't celebrate until we're in the car driving to the premiere. And my kid's like, this is the moment. So I paused and I took a video, and I'm like, this is the moment. Here we are. We did it.
Yeah, wow. That definitely sounds like a very rewarding journey, even though it was like years. And like honestly, just watching Love in Taipei 2, it reminded me of my own journey as well, watching Ever. Because just like Ever, I was in high school and I was forced to go back to the Philippines. I'm Filipino, by the way. And I
Mm.
attended college in Manila, but at first I was definitely very angry about it. But as I started opening up my heart to my own culture, it's definitely been the greatest blessing for me. I mean, if it wasn't for me going back to, my own home country, I wouldn't have found my passion in journalism and in spotlighting Filipino related news or our broader Asian American community. But going back to you, I know Love in Taipei draws inspiration from an actual program offered in Taiwan that you've also attended. So I'm curious how much of this story, including Ever's journey and struggles, is truly yours. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in growing up in America and then attending the Love Boat program?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, the program has been around since the 1960s. It was started to kind of do exactly what it does. It just bring youth, overseas youth back to the motherland to just learn about the language and the culture. So I was a presidential scholar in high school, and the Taiwanese government would go through the list of all the major awards, and everyone with a Chinese last name would get an invitation to go on this trip for free. So I had no idea what this program was. But it sounded cool. And a bunch of my friends from these programs had also gotten invitations. So like, let's just go. Let's go the summer after freshman year. And we did. And lo and behold, it turned out to be Loveboat. I had no idea where, there's no parental supervision. And these really cool Asian American kids are just going crazy, taking glamour shots and sneaking out clubbing and drinking snake blood sake. So I think I've always just had this like experience in my life. I would meet Loveboat alum through the years, and it would be like this little secret we'd have, like, "Huh, you went on Loveboat too? Like, do you remember those stories, or did you hear about that year?" But people outside the community didn't know about it. And I remember being at a party one time, and we were talking to Loveboat alum connected, and we were like talking about it. And the other non-Asian Americans there, they're like, "Wow, this really needs to be a book, all right, or a movie." I'm like, "Yeah, totally." So I didn't feel ready to write it though for many years, because I didn't write any works that were where an Asian American was the main character. And so I kind of, and that was because of the history in the industry where like, and there was an Asian American author 15 years prior to my time who was, she had to change her character to a Caucasian boy. He was an Asian American boy. She had to change it to a Caucasian boy in order to get her book deal. And so we just kind of knew like, oh, we weren't allowed to do this. But over time, through my MFA program, and as the zeitgeist started to change thanks to Crazy Rich Asians and Hamilton, I did start to find the courage to write my own main characters. And so I joke that I went off the deep end with Loveboat because it's got 30 different Asian American characters.
Yeah, that's honestly one of the things I love about the story. It has the diverse Asian characters. And what I mean by that is like what you said, they have, different background experiences because while we do see a lot of Asian actors across shows and movies nowadays, it's also important to note that we also have our own different voices, our own different experiences in our own Asian community. So, can you talk a little bit more about that importance of this type of representation, even in a cast of all Asian actors?
Yeah, no, we are a diverse community. And like even yourself, you mentioned you're from the Philippines. So my mom is from the Philippines and my dad is from Indonesia. And I was born in America myself. So I grew up in a very multicultural home. My parents spoke different native languages. So they used English with each other. And whenever we'd go visit the Philippines, my mom would speak Tagalog. My dad could speak Indonesian. My mom spoke a different dialect of Chinese than my dad. And so I think I just lived with that fullness as well as that tension. And really what was impressed on me the most was like, wow, like we're all so different and yet we're all very similar. And I think that's what I loved about this diverse Asian American story, because what is the Asian Americanness is no longer the most interesting thing about the character. Like I hated reading scripts where they're like, oh, that Asian character or your Asian friend, and like as though that was the defining detail. But in Loveboat Taipei, you've got the jock and the artist and the love interests and the bad kids and the good kids, like, whatever, like we don't need to give them like those types of labels either. But I loved that their Asian Americanness was erased in some ways so that we could see them for the human beings that they are. But on the flip side, what is uniquely Asian American also came to the surface because they were all together. So the centrality of family and the hold that our families have over us, the importance of last names, because that is a defining feature of who we are. And the importance of food in the culture and how much that can serve as a love language. And then, of course, the struggle between your parental expectations and your desire and people's desires to follow their hearts is, I think, is a very, very common to our immigrant communities.
Yeah, no, it definitely felt like a very fresh story to watch it, and even to read it. But I'm also curious, how was it like for you to collaborate with the filmmakers to ensure that the essence of your story in the novel was, captured on screen?
So it was very important from the beginning that I be involved. I've been involved more than most authors, and kind of my takeaway, especially because we're in the midst of this strike with the Writers Guild, is that authors should be involved in the filmmaking process. Absolutely, it was so easy for me because I know the characters inside and out. I know the whole storyline, the arcs. I like versus like someone coming fresh to the project, they have to study it. I just know it, and so when I'm on set, it was easy for me to like pick up those beats that are missing. So, for example, the scene where Sophie Ha's like huffing and puffing up Elephant Mountain. She's like, you guys go on without me. In the script, Xavier and Ever just go on without her. And so that's how they were filming it on set. And I was like, hey, actually, we need to add a beat there. Like Ever should say, are you sure? And then go on, right? So that's that beat, as you saw, got added to the film. And so I altered that. And there were like hundreds of moments like that in filming and thousands of moments like that with like the script, right? Just a lot of course correction. And I end up as an author saving a lot of money for the production company. But for me, it was also incredibly important to be involved to preserve the authenticity of representation, especially with an all Asian American and Asian cast and a deeply Asian American story.
Mm-hmm. So I've also noticed that, there are some details in the movie that are different from the novel. No spoilers, but, as the author and producer, can you talk about how these changes enhance or alter this overall storytelling? Like, for example, I know the titles were changed, and well, that's as much as I'll be mentioning. But
Yeah, that's the one that's public, right? So yeah, so the title change, interestingly enough, some of my foreign translations are also Love in Taipei, like my Hungarian translation, which I didn't know till my sister-in-law pointed it out. She speaks Hungarian. She spent some time there. But yes, I think Love in Taipei is actually a bigger title. I spent the past year in Vienna, Austria with my younger child who was studying music and composition there. And when I mentioned this new title, people get it. They're like, oh, we're in Vienna and there's a story about love in Taipei. It's a romance in another cool city. So they're intrigued immediately. But as the author of the book, publishers, you always want the book title to be the same as the movie title. So I think for us, the exercise is just making sure that the book title is mentioned in conjunction with the film title, so that the book fans know that this is the movie to watch. and the Loveboat alumni, who are vastly like they're all around the world, they're really influential, so that they also can discover this film like, oh wait, that's the story of our experience. Another change, the exercise of the adaptation is taking a 400-page novel and shrinking it down to a 100-page script for a 90-minute film. And you just cannot keep all the storylines. And really the exercise was condensing as much as possible. So what I can say is the characters are really true to themselves. They are exactly who they are in the book. Their journeys are slightly different, but they end up with the same story arc internally. And Charlie O, our screenwriter, did a great job of condensing the materials, like especially the introductions of each of the characters. It happens very fast at the beginning, as you saw in the movie. And then there was the ballet teacher in the novel, who kind of serves as a role model to Ever, as like a strong Asian woman who is a dancer. Ends up being the Auntie Shu character in the movie, who does double duty as a mentor figure, but also a family member who can keep Ever close to her family, which is an important storyline for the full film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. So as someone who loves reading, I know it's exciting, but also nerve-wracking to see your favorite books turn into films. I know you have a lot of fans and readers that you touch with your books, but how do you hope readers will react to Love in Taipei? And then for viewers who haven't read your novels, what do you hope they take away from the film?
Thank you for this question. So for the film, what I would want my readers to know is, like, the film ends in a different place than the book, and I think they will recognize that at a certain point in the book, the ending also happens. But there are 2 more novels. Loveboat Reunion is out in the world already, and Loveboat Forever is coming, which is set 6 years later. So the story continues in the books, through the rest of book 1, book 2, and book 3. And so, I'd love for readers to be able to find the full story there. And for viewers to the film who haven't read the books yet to, also have an opportunity to see what happens to these characters and how their journeys are resolved.
Great, thank you. So before I let you go, I did want to say your portfolio and your career has been very impressive and exciting. It's inspiring too. Um, with degrees in Harvard and Columbia, working in tech and law, and then also writing and producing on the side. Please tell us how this is all possible. I mean, this is literally like the dream of every Asian parent for their child, right?
I didn't know it was going to all come together like this. I didn't been writing for many years, but just didn't have the courage to call myself a writer. I had imposter syndrome. I didn't know I could do this. And it's certainly really difficult to make a living as a writer. Like, I remember when I was in my MFA program, we had speakers come through, and there was a New York Times bestseller who said, even New York Times bestsellers, they make a lot of money and then they don't. Right. So it's faddish. Right. And so I am grateful that I had a good job in law, that I was able to support myself and my family, and yet still have room to write. And what I did, I made choices to have a smaller legal career so that I could make space to raise my kids and write the novels. And that wasn't an easy choice. And I definitely felt like I paid some consequences for that in my legal career initially. But over time, it ended up working out. I think there was a low point when I went out for 2 promotions. I came in number 2 for both of them. They were legal jobs. And at the same time, Loveboat Taipei was rejected at version 26. And I thought, like, I screwed up. Like, I did everything wrong. I split myself too thin trying to do it all. And I didn't do anything well. But then everything changed because I had gone out for those 2 promotions. I got on the radar of senior people in my company, and I ended up getting a double promotion into a business role, which is so much better than the 2 legal roles I'd applied for. And I ended up getting sent on speaking on artificial intelligence around the world, which led to me eventually hosting the AI podcast, which I brought in like amazing speakers, industry leaders from all over. And then Loveboat was picked up and became a movie. And I think my takeaway from all that was, we do have to put ourselves out there, because then you find out who resonates with you. And, those failures along the way are just your way of figuring out, like, where do I fit? Where do I belong? What's going to work? So now I am, making more films, writing more books. And I find that all those experiences, they actually make up the 3 pillars of filmmaking, which is technology, finance, and creative storytelling. And I've had all those experiences to draw from now. So I didn't know it would work out this way. And I think all we can do in those moments is just make the best choice that we can and just keep going forward.
Yeah, that's great. Um, you're also an AI tech leader, right? Because I'm curious with all this talk of AI taking over writing jobs. I just want
Mhm.
to know your thoughts on this as well. And well, how do you balance being an AI tech leader with, being a writer?
Yeah, so I did leave my corporate job 2 years ago to do the writing, the creative content full time, and I have AI as part of my stories. I have multiple novels and scripts where artificial intelligence comes into bearing, including Loveboat Reunion, the second novel. So in that story, Sophie Ha is a girl in tech. She is trying to get off the waitlist into an AI class at Dartmouth, and ends up teaming up with Xavier, who's being forced to repeat senior year of high school by his father. They team up and end up in Taiwan on this like mission to take control of their own lives, and they find themselves on this like nonstop Love Boat reunion instead. So there is an example like where I was able to incorporate, my work, my background, my interests in artificial intelligence into just my general work as a creator. But yeah, I think AI is it's been around for a bit now, and I think it's a powerful tool, and I think it's actually really important for creatives to take control of it and get on top of it. They should be the ones in charge of it and learning how it can enhance their work and also learning the pitfalls. And I think, yeah, copyright issues and control over your own images, like all that is really important. And I know those issues are on the table.
Mhm. All right. Well, thank you again, Abigail, for your time. Love and
Thank you.
Taipei will be available on Paramount Plus on August 10. All right. Thank you so much for the interview. And I really appreciate this conversation with you. I learned a lot.
Thank you, Michelle. Me too. Be well.